Hi folks, I'm Randy Beardsley. As we've been working through my doctrine of what needs done to fix our country, we've spent a lot of time reviewing why our country's going in the wrong direction and explaining that this level of performance not only isn't good enough, but it will have deadly consequences for your family if we don't change it. So in a world where your enemies, they control the government, they control your access to information, they can read and listen to every email, every text, every phone call you make. They can even track every one of your financial transactions. Can anything be done to save our future? I've given a lot of thought to this, and I believe that for those that aren't willing to concede their future, there is a plan, a strategy that we can implement to change course. I call this plan the press plan. And although I've mentioned this action plan previously, I haven't gone into a lot of details. So today, I want to discuss this plan further, so that when you realize that the current plan of conceding your future isn't an option, you'll be ready to do your part to ensure that your family does have a future. The press plan is a strategy that helps you build the necessary foundation to weather the oncoming storm, and it promotes the actions that will help you end the failed policies that are creating the storm in the first place. It does this by mobilizing regular Americans like us to not only talk about what's wrong in our country, but to actively implement into their daily life a series of actions that will make a difference. Many of us have been deceived into thinking that maintaining the status quo will change our plight. Or worse, some have just checked out altogether, thinking that the problem's too big or too complicated or too much work to solve. And some, in spite of all the obvious signs, they may not even know there's a problem yet. But fortunately, many people do know something has to be done, but they aren't sure what to do to make things better. All four of these groups have one thing in common. They aren't doing anything to fix the problem. They're idle. But idle hands are the devil's workshop. And anyone trying to convince you that things are great and telling you that you should stay idle and concede your family's future, they're wrong. You can't be idle anymore. You can't do the work of the devil anymore by staying on the sidelines and doing nothing. Because doing nothing will ensure that your family's future is lost. If you plan on having a future, you must be willing to compete and win the battle for that future. If you want good to prevail over evil, it won't happen by chance. It will only happen if you make it happen. And you can help make it happen by implementing the press plan. It gets you in the game so you can do your part to protect your loved ones from the harm that's being carried out against them. And the press plan helps to pave the way for the implementation of a better way, the principles that we've been discussing in the Beardsley Doctrine. Now, the press plan has 5 fundamental strategies, and the implementation of each strategy is essential to crush the betrayal and incompetence that's destroying our future. Each strategy is represented by a cylinder on the press. And just like on your car, every cylinder has to be firing to generate the power that we'll need to win the future for our children. And you have the power to move these cylinders by participating in the plan. The 5 strategies are this: participate in political action, realign your finances, educate yourself and your family, secure your future, and support enforcers. Within these 5 areas, there are several specific actions that every American that cares about our future should be implementing every day. The best part, to get the press moving, you don't have to ride in the streets, miss work, break any laws, or in many cases even leave home. We just have to use the rights, the tools, and the resources that we already possess to begin to create change. So today, let's talk briefly about each area, and in future segments, we'll go into more details about each action. Let's start with participate in political action. Most of us have been busy working, paying taxes, and occasionally voting in the belief that we were part of the political process. But we weren't. And it should have become apparent by now that the elected officials that we trusted to run our country, they either aren't competent to do it, or they have an allegiance to something other than our future. The problem is compounded by the two-party system today. Because for those still engaged in voting, this system only offers the illusion of choice. The truth is, you get to pick between two bad options that ensure you lose every time. Remember the roulette table? Either party that you pick offers the same predictable outcome. They win, you lose. As a result, some people have given up on the political process just due to the inability to find candidates with allegiance to our country. And others have tuned out due to the ever-growing appearance of the illegitimacy of our elections. But that's the exact outcome they want. They want you to give up on the process so it'll be even easier to corrupt the system. Or they want you to keep playing at the roulette table that they set up that ensures that you lose. But if we want to have a future, we can't give up or tune out. Nor can we just keep getting fooled every election cycle like Charlie Brown trying to kick that football. Because real participation in political action is a crucial step to begin the process of electing true, incorruptible Americans to political office that have an allegiance to our family, our Constitution, our values. And when I say political office, I mean every office that can influence our future. From President of the United States to being on your school board, your church board, even your YMCA board. No role is insignificant, and every one of them counts. We assumed that honest men and women would emerge to fill these roles and stop this insanity, but we were wrong. Change isn't going to happen until we make it happen, until we put people in these positions that share our values, not in talk, but in their beliefs and their actions. Moving forward, life isn't going to get any less busy, but we all have to challenge ourselves to find the time to do more. And for some, this must include getting outside your comfort zone and running for political office or fulfilling these other non-political positions. And for others, there are lots of other ways that you can participate. We'll talk about how when I address all the details in participating in political action in a future session. Now, the second action that you need to do is to realign your finances. This is one of the easiest ways to make a significant impact on your future. One of the easiest ways to get that press moving down, but it's often one of the most overlooked. Elections are every couple years, but you get to vote with your pocketbook every day. Our country is filled with businesses, churches, organizations that don't share our values and are actively working against our future. Yet, often out of habit, we continue to patronize and finance these very companies and organizations that promote the destruction and betrayal of our future. A good example is the Quad A crowd that we discussed during Article 6 when we addressed media deceptions. These are athletes, actors, actresses, and musical artists. Many that publicly promote policies destructive to our future. Yet, we continue to give them our hard-earned money to provide them even a bigger platform for deceiving our kids and undermining our future. If we stop being idle and apply a little effort, we can all do our part to get that press moving down to defund the groups that have betrayed us. The realigning your finances strategy will help you make decisions that ensure you're patronizing businesses, organizations, and places of all types that share the same common beliefs that you do, not the people undermining your future. It'll require some soul searching, though, when you realize that some of these organizations, businesses, people, even churches, many that you've been affiliated with or patronized your whole life, they no longer share the beliefs and principles that you have. But if you really value a future for your children, you'll have to be ready to make these difficult decisions. The enemies of our future, they love to defund us and the police who help to protect us. But now it's time for us to defund them into groups aligned with them. I'll go through all the ways to make every day count during the Realign Your Finances session. The third strategy and the cylinder on the press is education. Educate yourself and your family. Nothing is more powerful than information, or in our current day, misinformation. Propaganda, misrepresentations, and other outright lies proliferate our world and especially our children's world. These carefully packaged deceptions, they mislead good Americans of all ages to support the failed policies that are undermining our future. Our enemies realize that corrupting our schools, our government, and our media would be necessary to manipulate the truth for their gain. We discussed several of these techniques prior when we reviewed the deception checklist. They realized that through the distortion of history and the manipulation of current events, they could trick and deceive many Americans to sacrifice their own future. That's right. Millions of people tricked into forfeiting their own future for the enrichment of others. So everywhere you look, deceptive and misleading information is used to manipulate your emotions and create perceptions intended to mislead you into supporting people and policies that have a very bad outcome for you and your family. But if you and your family knew the truth, you would never support your own demise. Because when family leaders seek the truth and take an active role in the education process for their family, they drown out the repetitive drone of misinformation. They easily convince their family that self-sacrifice is not the right path forward. This leadership is most critical of their children, since they're the target of endless manipulation. So in the education section, I'll talk in more detail about how to get people educated and how to get you educated so that you can be a leader for your family. And since most people don't have the time to research all the topics that are crucial to their future, I'll provide you the necessary information on the important issues to help you recognize and combat the manipulative emotional sound bites of the day that deceive so many. You have to be the force that defends against these deceptions. And you can only do this if you know the truth. The education section will help you do this. There will be no success, none, without the emergence of leaders, especially at the family level, who are brave enough to seek the truth and then be the truth teller for their family and their community. Now, the fourth cylinder on the press is this: secure your future. Basic human needs, no matter where you are, start with safety, security, access to food and water, and shelter. These are the basic needs that humans have banded together to ensure for themselves since the beginning of time. But your ability to meet these needs for your family is slowly but surely being taken away from you, because the control of these needs is being purchased by the government and their friends using your tax money. The government and their friends, they want to control all the basic needs that you require so that they can play God and determine whether or not you're worthy to have access to the basic needs that you and your family require. There are plenty of examples of this already. They'll decide if your family's life is worth saving and whether or not you get the police protection that you already paid for. They'll decide if you can possess your God-given right to self-defense, or if they'll legitimize violence against your family while criminalizing self-defense from this violence. They'll decide if illegal drugs will be available to your children at school every day. They'll decide if you qualify for a loan to buy a house, and if you do, how much of other people's loans you have to pay to get your loan. They'll decide if you can have a job and support your family. A few years back, they even tested out limiting your access to food and further limiting your right to work if you didn't take the drugs that they prescribed to you. And to make it even easier to control your future, they're even working towards replacing cash with a debit card. Why? Because a card makes you beholden to them to even be able to spend your own money. Cashless, they call it. It sounds neat. But when you're deemed unworthy or a racist or a domestic terrorist, they just shut your card down. And you don't have access to your own money or to any of the things that your family needs. They like to call this little trick freezing of assets. But in reality, it's theft. The theft of your future. So in a world where your enemies already control many of life's basic needs, and they aim to control all of them, what should you be doing to make sure you can protect yourself and provide a secure future for yourself and your family? Pick up your shield and use the Secure Your Future strategy to give you a sound starting point by learning the basic steps that you should be taking to do your best to make sure that your family doesn't end up a victim of violence or that you become beholden to the government for life's basic needs. Waiting for your enemies to provide a safe and secure future for your family is a failed strategy. Find out how to take control and secure your own future. Now the final action, support enforcers. Although our enemies are well-financed and organized, they lack in numbers, and they rely upon a corrupt political class and enforcers to carry out their crimes in our country. Enforcers are non-elected citizens who hold government, private sector, media jobs that choose to stay idle or worse, actively participate in the destruction of our futures. Enforcers hold all types of jobs, but several high-risk jobs include business leaders, union leaders, newscasters, military leaders, teachers, police chiefs, school administrators, supervisory positions at government agencies. But why do these people act as enforcers? Some enforcers, after making a Faustian deal, a deal with the devil, where they're promised power and riches for selling their soul in exchange for betraying your future. Others enforce simply out of ignorance and are unable to discern fact from fiction due to the carefully crafted propaganda that appears so believable. While others enforce because they're bullied and intimidated into it. Because if you're a good American who doesn't want to willingly participate in this enforcement because you know it's destroying our future, other existing enforcers act to make sure you go along. Because if you don't, you lose your job, you lose your business, or they make your family the target of harassment and violence. So in this strategy, if you're currently an enforcer, I'll provide you with the information you need to understand the consequences of your actions to show you why you must stop. If one of your friends or family are an enforcer, I'll give you the tools you need to reach out to them to help them break the cycle of enforcement by offering solutions through support and education that are not only specifically targeted to the role of the enforcer, but also specific to the reason for their participation in the enforcement. Hardest to reach are those that made a deal with the devil. But even Judas, who sold his soul to the devil for a bag of gold to betray Jesus, realized his error, although too late in his case. But our goal is to reach all these enforcers and help them realize their betrayal before it's too late. This tiny minority that's orchestrating this death march in our families, they hide in the shadows and derive their power by using regular Americans as enforcers. But if we're going to succeed, we have to eliminate their source of power by helping enforcers realize that doing the right thing is more important than a bag of gold that they may receive from being an enforcer. And with no enforcers, they have no power. And we end their reign of terror and our death march. Whether you're an enforcer or you know one, doing your part to implement this strategy is essential to build the framework needed for good to prevail over evil. Now that's a brief overview of each strategy in the press plan. But I don't want to mislead you. Although our enemies are small in number, they're well entrenched, they're quick to violence, they have little regard for you or your family's life. And as long as we stay idle and they have enforcers willing to carry out this terror, they're going to continue to unleash any amount of misery and violence, including death, on anyone that would dare to try to stop our death march. But we can stop this march. If we want to eliminate this failure before it eliminates our lives, we all have to spring into action to create the energy to get that press moving down. 5 strategies, and you can participate in every one of them. Hope is a bad strategy. That's why I'm inviting you to move beyond just hoping for a better outcome, and instead to participate in creating a better outcome. It's long been said if you aren't part of the solution, then you must be part of the problem. Don't be part of the problem by doing the work of the devil, by being idle and allowing our world to become the devil's workshop. If conceding your future isn't an option, then let's work together. I'll see you next time.